Let's start by talking about what stress and anxiety are. Oftentimes, we use the terms stress and anxiety interchangeably, but they're actually different when it comes to diagnosable anxiety disorders. Clinical anxiety and everyday anxiety, or stress, often look similar and share the same arousal response. Arousal basically means being alert, both physically and mentally. So, both anxiety and stress trigger people to become more alert. They also share many of the same symptoms. Here are some ways that we can distinguish between the two. Stress, or everyday anxiety, is a response to a known environmental factor. The symptoms of stress usually go away when the stressor goes away. Stress is something we all experience at some point in our lives. And finally, stress can sometimes even be motivational. Clinical anxiety, on the other hand, can occur with chronic stress, with an acute stressor, like a major stressful event, or it can occur when there's no identifiable stressor at all. The symptoms of anxiety persist even after the stressor has passed. The symptom intensity is exaggerated compared to what we would expect for a given situation. Anxiety causes significant distress and interferes with your daily life. It's not motivational. It's perpetuated by avoidance, which we'll discuss later. And finally, anxiety can take many different forms and may or may not be diagnosable. Anxiety ranges in severity from everyday anxiety and stress to a diagnosable anxiety disorder. Here's a list of the differences between stress and clinical anxiety, as well as more information about various anxiety diagnoses. Feel free to pause this video and take a moment to read more. For now, I want to highlight the part about stress or everyday anxiety as a motivator, and high levels of anxiety as a hindrance to performance. Here's a visual of the Yerkes-Dodson model of arousal and performance. The idea here is that someone who has no stress or anxiety, in other words, no arousal, has little motivation to perform and keep up with their responsibilities. Whereas someone with too much anxiety or arousal may attempt to avoid the situation or perform poorly due to their symptoms. However, with a moderate level of arousal from stress or anxiety, a person is likely to be motivated to prepare, concentrate, or do whatever is necessary for the situation without becoming debilitated or avoidant. For example, some stress before a test or deadline may motivate and energize you to study. However, with minimal or no stress, you may say, "Why bother studying?" and decide to wing it. With too much anxiety, you may feel overwhelmed, hopeless, and avoid studying at all. This might sound familiar to many of us. Now let's talk about avoidance, which is a common response to feelings of anxiety. Take a look at this graph to help visualize how avoidance relates to anxiety. Often, when people have an anxiety-provoking situation, they experience numerous uncomfortable physical, emotional, and cognitive symptoms. In an effort to avoid the uncomfortable experience of anxiety, people avoid the anxiety-provoking situation altogether. For example, some people who sign up for this workshop avoid the anxiety triggered by starting it by not coming at all. Initially, the avoidance brings a sense of relief. However, every time we avoid an anxiety-producing situation, our anxiety is reinforced. The brain sees it like this: when I avoid this situation, I feel better. I guess I should try to avoid it next time too. Thus, the avoidance anxiety roller coaster repeats. Sound familiar? But the short term relief of avoidance and escape comes at a high cost. Avoidance and escape contribute to the persistence of anxiety and reduce a person's level of daily functioning. This is why exposure, or doing things that you typically avoid because of anxiety, is beneficial. Exposing yourself to the anxiety-provoking situation helps you to see the situations more realistically and increases your tolerance for anxiety. For example, those of you who experienced anxiety about coming to today's workshop will likely feel anxious about coming to the next one.